We are delighted to be kicking off Black History Month celebrations with today's leadership lunch. It's one of my favourite spaces as an ally to really sit and listen and learn and be inspired. And I have high hopes that will be achieved today for me. This year's Black History Month theme is Standing Firm in Power and Pride, which I particularly love as a theme. And before getting into our focus for today, I just wanted to share a moment this last week when my 5-year-old daughter gave me reason to reflect on the theme. Very conveniently, I must say, her timing. So to set the scene, my daughter is a child with teenage levels of monosyllabic when I try and get any kind of information about what's happening at school. I mean, like, I really get nothing, not even if it's been a good day, not if it's been a bad day, let alone what they've learned in the day. So imagine the scene. We're walking home from school, and this is last week, out of the blue. I was hit by a pretty lengthy and genuinely completely unsolicited monologue from her. So imagine the force with which it hit me. It went like this, basically. Mama, did you know that black people weren't allowed to sit on the same seats as white people on the buses in the olden days? Just because of the colour of their skin? Can you believe it? But Mama, there was this lady called Rosa and she said, no, this is not right. And she sat on a different seat and she even got arrested and it was the right thing to do. She changed the world, Mama. Isn't that amazing? As in my 5-year-old. So honestly, I was just doing this kind of like weird, skipping fist pump combination to hear this from her. Not least because I've just found out something about her day for once. But yeah, she was jumping up and down. She was animated. Of course, the Black American civil rights movement has personified standing firm in power and pride. And I cannot express how happy I am that my daughter is already gaining role models like Rosa Parks. But although this story relates to Rosa Parks, what has delighted me about the growing celebration of Black History Month over the last few years is how many more powerful and important Black stories we now hear. It's long been time, of course, for these stories to have more space. And I have to say, it currently feels like it's never been more important in some ways. There are, of course, plenty of these stories to be heard and celebrated in the world of engineering. Finally, I've said engineering. So when I decided to tell you that story about my daughter, I was like, oh, there's got to be an engineering link. Please let there be an engineering link. So I went on Wikipedia. You may already know this, but did you know that Rosa Parks apparently used to work at Maxwell Air Force Base? There'll be loads of engineers there. That's my link, okay? It's tenuous, but there'll be loads of engineers there. But at the base, she was able to use non-segregated transport, and this impacted how horrified she was when she returned to her hometown to find out that the public buses were segregated. Anyway, of course, I probably can't quite say that engineers are responsible for desegregation, but I learn something every day. And today's event is a bold and joyful tribute to the strength, legacy, and brilliance of Black individuals in engineering and beyond. So finally, I'm getting to the actual main event, the people you're here to listen to, which is definitely not me. We are really honoured to be joined by two incredible speakers, Edwin Ehiorobo, co-founder of Energyz Black, and Dr. Ibilola Amao, co-founder of the Women in Energy Network, who are both leaders in the energy sector, as many of you already know, and who are powerful voices in the conversation around representation and equity. I'd also like to welcome Johannes Scarlett, my colleague, co-chair of the Academy's Employee Resource Group POEMS, which stands for People of Ethnic Majority. And he's also the lead for the development of the Academy's EDI Engine Report, which many of you will have already seen and which will feature in the topics our speakers explore today. So Johannes will be chairing today's discussion. Please do join me in welcoming everyone to the stage.
So as my colleague Joanna said, I'm Johannes Scarlett. I am Research and Policy Advisor for Diversity and Inclusion at the Royal Academy of Engineering, and that's pretty as much as you're going to hear about me today. I was asked to share a little bit about what Black History Month means to me before I go into speaking to our brilliant panelists here. And for me, Black History Month, well, it started in the US as Negro History Week back in 1926 by historian Carter G. Woodson, to counter amnesia about Black achievements. Here in the UK, the 1960s and 70s Black Power movements, the Saturday Schools movements, and the tireless work of people like Professor Gus John and Darcus Howell helped make Black History Month a reality here. October was chosen in 1987 by Akieba Adesebo because it marks a fresh academic year and a season of renewal, giving schools and workplaces the best chance to learn, reflect, and celebrate. What Black History Month means to me is simple. It's a commitment to reevaluate history beyond a Western lens, to center African perspectives, and to recognize excellence wherever it has been overlooked. At the Royal Academy of Engineering, it's important that we use our position and this time to showcase the diversity of the profession and achievements of Black engineers and pioneers like Lewis Latimer, Elijah McCoy, Gladys West, and Otis Wakin. I could tell you a bit about those people, but later on. And contemporary figures such as Dr. Maggie Adering-Pocock and Dr. Nikkei Falayan, MBE, FRE, yeah, Fellows of the Academy. This year's theme is Standing Firm in Power and Pride. It's about resilience, particularly in a time where it might feel progress is stalled. It is important that we redouble our efforts and make sure that we make time to celebrate with pride, diversity, and contributions of diverse communities make. Our spin on Power and Pride focuses on energy, a sector that will define the UK's just transition, yet where Black engineers remain markedly underrepresented. Best available estimates suggest that Black engineers and Black professionals make up around 2% of the UK energy workforce. This is why visibility and sponsorship matter. So today, we're spotlighting two pioneers who persisted, progressed, and pulled others up with them. Proof that excellence thrive when doors are held open. I'll get you to introduce yourselves, and I'll get you to that along with my first question, if that's okay. To start the conversation, I want to hear what this year's theme means to our speakers. And when answering, please introduce yourself, give a brief overview of who you are and your journey to this point. So the question is, in the spirit of our theme, Standing Firm in Power and Pride, what does that mean to you personally and professionally? I'll start with you, Dr. Ibilola.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really pleased to be here. My name is Dr. Ibilola Amao. I'm the principal consultant at Lonade Global Services. I'm the co-founder of the Women in Energy Network. I started off my education in Nigeria. And when I was 15, I moved to the United Kingdom and studied in a Quaker school, Saffron Walden, Friends School, Saffron Walden, where I was definitely challenged in the area of diversity for the first time, coming from an all-Black environment to an all-white environment in Saffron Walden. I had to convince myself at that point in time that I was not an idiot because my maths teacher then thought I shouldn't even be in maths class. But thank God I had been a brilliant maths student in Nigeria and I was able to make a point and I was able to translate from traditional maths to modern maths. And then I moved to Queen Mary College, had a first class in civil and structural engineering, then went for my PhD in University of Bradford, where I specialized in 3D modeling of oil and gas facilities. My late father encouraged me to train to become a chartered engineer. So with a PhD, I went back to graduate training, and that really set me up for looking at the holistic spectrum of engineering. I went back to Nigeria, set up an oil and gas consulting company, and I was able to develop the capacity, capability, and competence of locals in the use of engineering systems. And I've focused more on the human capital development aspect of engineering. I've been on the Council of the Energy Institute for 6 years, panel of judges with the Royal Academy of Engineering for another 6 years. And basically right now, I'm focused on leaving a legacy of diversity. And that's why the Women in Energy Network is very important to me. The girl child is usually challenged, not from the environment, even from home. Most parents do not want their daughters to study engineering because they find it as a very limiting and constraining career path. But I'd like to encourage everyone in the room that female engineers could be successful in what they do and could add a lot of value from diversity perspectives. And I'm sure that this is one of the spectrums we're going to be looking at, that it's very important to encourage people to have a pride in self first and pride in community to be able to add value and create value in engineering. So that's basically what the point means to me. Thanks.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, is it working? Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Edwin, the co-founder of Energyz Black. Started my career over 10 years ago. I know I look young, but Black don't crack, you say. So I started really in the oil and gas sector, working for Total Energies. I was part of the team doing quality control for aviation fuel back in the African region. And sooner, Total Energy entered partnership with International Finance Corporation to finance solar lamp distribution across the African continent. And the aim was to distribute 1 million solar lamps to improve the lives of 5 million Africans on the continent. And I was part of the people that was managing that project across the continent. I did that for a while. I felt like, okay, let me try to go into consulting. I went to the consulting as a trained electrical engineer. I was able to put my engineering field at play at consulting. I then was managing projects across Africa, but majorly focused on mini grids, solar mini grids, and also just making sure that solar home solutions thrive within the African context. At the time, things around solar PV were not conversations to be had in Africa, but we had to pioneer to ensure that at the moment, almost 600 million Africans don't have access to electricity. And we wanted to make sure people have access to electricity through solar mini grids. And I was one of those people pioneering that in the Africa region. When I did that for a bit, I said, okay, what happens on other part of the world? Let me come to England and see what happens. So that's how I found myself in England. I did a master's in advanced energy technology. I decided to major on digital technology. And I realized that if our energy systems are going to get smarter and we're going to achieve energy security, we're going to continue to build smarter and smarter energy systems. And I decided to go into digital technology. At the moment, I develop digital technologies for the DNOs across the country. And most of the softwares are used by more than 10 million customers across the country. And when I moved to England, I realized there was a cultural shift that I needed to embrace, right? So back in the African region, if you are a smart software engineer, if you're a smart electrical engineer, it's just enough to get you the promotion. But when I moved to England, I realized that wasn't enough, all right? You needed to tell your story, you needed to speak. And then I found myself going for events and going for conferences. And I would see people come to meet me and say, I am a Black person in technology. I'm a Black person in construction. I'm a Black person in finance. I was asking myself, where are the Black people in energy? Where are they? And then 2004, I went for a conference organized by Technician. And then the same thing happened. When I was coming back home with one of my friends, I told the guy, I said, I'm going to start a community for Black professionals in the energy sector. But that was just the beginning. I needed someone that wanted to share the same value as me. And then I had to look for a co-founder, which is Shuri, my co-founder. And for the last 19 months, we started Energyz Black. And we've grown to over 600 members across the country. We've been able to impact over 450 people and professionals, just helping, Black visibility gap. People talk about skill gap, but there's Black visibility gap in the energy sector. Trying to increase representation. And when it comes to the team, what it means for me is just being authentic to myself, know that my contribution matter in the energy sector, not having to shrink myself because I'm a Black person. There were quite a lot of cultural shift I had to embrace. And when it comes to the power part of the theme, power is not control, is being in the position to be able to influence and inspire the next generation. And that's what I look to doing, for the long run. So thank you very much.
And thank you so much for the time and for sharing this time here with us and your experiences, because you both bring great experience to this audience today. I wonder, what role does Pride play in building resilient communities and networks like Energyz Black or Women in Energy Network?
I think wanting to represent and replicate yourself and see more of your type and your person in the public space is very important. For an oil and gas consulting engineer, there are hardly any Black females in the boardrooms I sit in. I mean, even when I was on the Council of the Energy Institute about 10 years ago, I think I was probably the first Black on the council in over 100 years. And I mean, I think to do that, you really need to look at mentoring, coaching, you need to look at building communities, just like he said. So there has to be a deliberate effort to set up the kind of structures to replicate yourself through building networks, communities, platforms that gives other people access to where you are. I think it's also important that looking at girls in STEM, for me as a female engineer in energy and entrepreneurship, going back to the secondary schools to speak to young girls in STEM and to let them understand that there's a career path and an entrepreneurial path or a leadership path for them. And they need to persevere and continue to work along those lines is how we could really expand the catchment.
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to resilience in building communities like Energyz Black and Women Network, is you have to get comfortable with having very uncomfortable conversations. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, it's not a very comfortable conversation to have when you go to these companies. He was giving some statistics. We have the most reduced percentage of Black professionals when it comes to, if you compare it to finance and constructions and other, and it's even worse as you begin to climb the ladder, is senior leadership positions, right? What we've realized is that professionals started a career in the sector. After 1 to 3 years, they just plateau. They don't move to become middle management, senior managers, or even decision-making roles. And you have to go into spaces like that to say, what is happening here? What are we going to change to make sure we have more leaders and Black leaders in this sector? Those are very uncomfortable conversations. I mean, let's not talk about what's happening in the United States. And when those things are happening in that part of the world, it gets to be influenced in this part of the world. They're scrapping DEI, policies and stuff. Let's not play, that those things are not going to influence what will happen in the UK. So it's a very difficult conversation. So you need to be really, really resilient. When we're going to register Energyz Black, we had to do it like 3 times. For the first 2 times, we failed because they're like, Black, why? Does it mean it's just going to benefit just a certain group of people? And for us, once we go into spaces to talk about the importance of diversity and representation, we also spotlight the importance of allyship. I've been a very great beneficiary of allyship. People that will look at you in the office and they say, you have, a great potential, I'm going to mentor you. And they're not Black people, they're fellow professionals like us. I remember one of my professors looked at me when I was doing my master's. I just wanted to do my master's and go back to Africa, to be honest, and maybe go and start a company like her. Yeah. But he looked at me and said, you are very brilliant. I'm going to make sure you get a position here. So he is actually a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. He kind of recommended me to a company. The first company I worked for in the UK, I was recommended by a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. What a coincidence. So when I got there to the company, they asked, can you design solar PV and do economical analysis? I said, yes. They gave me the laptop. They said, go upstairs, do it an SC. And then I did it. They told me, start the work today, and we're going to pay you for the time you spent doing this work. And the person took me as a mentee, allyship. So when it comes to resilience, you have to push boundaries. When it comes to having those uncomfortable conversations, you have to do it. So it's a lot of work to be done, but it's really shaped how the nexus of Energyz Black is built. We're going to spaces now, people know Energyz Black, but 4, 5, 10 months ago, it was not like that, right? So there's more work to be done, there's more boundaries to be pushed. But what I want you to know is that it's a very uncomfortable conversation to be had, and you have to get comfortable in having those uncomfortable conversations. If not, we're just going to go back. There was a prediction that the percentage was going to be more this year, but it has gone back. Yeah. And we know why. We all know why. We're not going to pretend we don't know why. So there's more work to be done.
It's a difficult environment right now.
Yeah.
On that point around resilience, though, and sort of the resilience that you've built into your group, how much of it is a balance between saying to Black engineers and Black young people coming into the profession that there's a need for resilience, and how much is it about talking to the profession and saying we shouldn't have to be saying to Black people you need to be resilient to become engineers in this country?
Well, I think with resilience, it's so important. You need a thick skin because you will be confronted with resistance. People will question your competence, your capability, your skills. People will expect you to be twice as good quite a lot of times. So you really need to be very focused. And resilience is basically being extremely focused on your goals and your target, and being blindsided blanking out every distraction and irrespective of what's thrown at you, able to convert problems, issues, and challenges into opportunities or even a bigger vision and a bigger target. So you have to get to the place whereby you have the self-confidence within you that you have what it takes to succeed. And irrespective of what is thrown at you or what is told to you, you know you're going to be successful. You also need the support system. And that's where I think family and your inner network is very important. You need people who believe in you and who trust in you, because there'll be some times when you're confronted with doubt, and people would throw a lot of resistive obstacles in your way. You really, really need to have the right support systems, the belief in yourself, and the confidence to keep moving ahead. And that's really the kind of resilience Black people would need in engineering and in perhaps the more probably white male-dominated sectors. So I have been in oil and gas for 33 years, in engineering for 35 years. So I've had to confront that. I'm running a business, an oil and gas consulting company. In some environments in Africa, I'm pretty comfortable. I'm confronted with diversity, gender diversity issues, but in Europe and in the Western world, I'm probably confronted with the race diversity issues. So there are a lot of things I have to handle, but I'm very grateful to God that I had the support from my family, I have the network, and I've built a reputable ISO certified company that does its stuff with the international oil companies and is credible. So I really don't have to go through that again. But for the young female engineer today, especially a Black female engineer, we need a lot of support, because sometimes resilience has its limits. You need people, the support system, and that's why I'm very pleased that the Royal Academy of Engineering is actually celebrating this particular month, is to encourage more Black girls in STEM to come out and look at engineering as an option.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because one thing I would say, as a Black person getting into engineering or in the energy sector, and where you know you need to build resilience, one thing I would say is learn to tell your stories. Learn to tell your stories, because once we talk about skill gaps, like I said earlier, there is issue with visibility gaps. And because there are a lot of spaces that celebrates Black contribution in the sector. All right, so learn to tell your story, and not just be good at your technical skills. What I would say is try to own your soft skills. Okay, like I was saying earlier, if I was back in the Africa region, I'm a project manager, I'm good. I don't need to say a lot of stories. I don't need to be very political at the office. I don't need to go and meet one senior manager to say, please, I need a promotion. I just need to be good. And everybody will say, oh, have you met Edwin on the 4th floor? He's very good in engineering. He's one of the best. But when I came here, I realized I had to tell my story to say, do you know what? I just worked on XYZ, and this is the profit he's going to give to the company. And then people began to realize that, oh, he's actually good at what he does. I'm like, I'll be good all the while. So learn to tell your story. You need to be resilient in telling your story. Secondly, you need to not work in silos. All right. So one of the things we do within Energyz Black is to encourage people not to work in silos. Once you build your community within the Black community, try to build a community with allyship. Right. You need allyship. Don't just because you're a Black person in engineering or in energy, you just want to mingle with your Black fellows. Build allyship. The issue of energy transition is very complex. It's a very complex subject. And we can't be in rooms where people that look and sound the same, continue to be. We will need, one of the videos we watched earlier, somebody mentioned this as well. We need diversified thoughts. And when thoughts come together, that's when you have innovation, right? So build, resilience, but make sure you tell your story. Secondly, make sure you build a community of Black professionals, but of course, allyship, because you need everybody, to move in the sector. So that's what I would say, yeah.
Sure, definitely. And just a question now, focus in on like the work you've been doing around energy, climate change, just transitions. How do you balance the urgency of climate action with the need for inclusive representation in decision making and innovation?
Okay, I'm very lucky. Like I said earlier, my PhD was in computer-aided design and drafting, and I've specialized in 3D modeling of oil and gas facilities. In recent times, I mean, for over 21 years, we've been partnered with Aviva, who are focused in engineering information technology solutions. So digital transformation, developing digital twins, predictive and prescriptive operations and maintenance is at the fore today. And this is a huge space for female engineers especially. So this is an opportunity. I mean, we've had a situation whereby we lose a lot of female engineering expertise after their childbearing years because they tend to stay home and look after and nurture their children. But with digital transformation and information technology beginning to drive energy transition and achieving sustainable development goals, and the digitalization of the space of engineering and implementation of digital transformation solutions has really opened the space for remote work. So whether it's virtual work, working from home, working from anywhere, people don't really need to know whether you're Black or whether you're a female. You can actually deliver skill sets and solutions remotely. You don't really need to prove who you are or what you are. So I think that's really, really energy transition, digital transformation, and information technology solutions right now has really opened the door and democratized the space for a DEI to become more applicable. So that's...
Yeah, it's climate change urgency. Urgency doesn't really mean you need to move fast. You just need to move effectively, right? In the UK, the solar PV sector is projected to create about 35,000 jobs by 2050. And then the onshore and offshore combined, it's about 145. And I think just recently, the National Grid, they proposed about 400,000 jobs be created by 2030. Sorry, not 2050, 2030. So there are opportunities that are created, and those opportunities, there are quite a lot of them that are going to be digitalized. Like I said earlier, the systems are going to get smarter, so we need digital skills. So when it comes to urgency in moving, it's not really moving fast, it's moving effectively, and moving effectively in a way that our systems are secure. And if you're going to be in that space, I would say you really need to own your digital skills, right? This might be a one-off story, but when it comes to things around cybersecurity, right? When it comes to things around AI, when it comes to things around demand flexibility, the demand flexibility market is one of the hugest markets in the energy sector. If you want to get into the sector now, really grow and contribute to a digitally transformative, running of the climate change actions and all of that, you need to make sure you own your skills in these things. So when it comes to climate change urgency, I don't think it's about how fast you move, it's how effective you move. And when it comes to effectiveness, there has to be a lot of innovation, there has to be a lot of collaboration, there has to be a lot of public-private partnership. I spoke about this yesterday at the Labour Party conference. If you're not a Labour Party person, apologies. I'm not a partisan as well, but I was just asked to go and speak on energy security. I really mentioned some of these. And if you're there yesterday, apologies, I'm repeating the same thing. So we just need to make sure there's a lot of collaboration, within the sector, and see yourself playing a very vital part in it. See yourself, it's bringing a lot of political polarization at the moment in the sector. People don't understand. My mom doesn't understand transformer. She doesn't understand, switch jars. She doesn't understand cables and all of that. She just wants to make sure that she gets cheap electricity in our apartments.
I'm right, mom in that case.
Correct. And how do you do that is demand flexibility, one of the ways to do it. So there's no silver bullet to it. It's everybody bringing innovation together to solve a particular problem. So if you're looking at the sector, make sure it's something that you should be looking at contributing towards.
Thank you so much for the answer. And I've got so many questions. I've kind of gone off script, to be fair. And so I've got some more, definitely have questions that I need to get through. I won't be able to. We're running out of time. I do want to get some questions for the audience. Maybe we'll be able to come back. So for the audience, I think there'll be a roving mic going around at some point. So if you have any questions for our panel here, Dr. Ibilola and Edwin.
Cool.
We got one at the back there, yeah.
Anybody from the press? No.
So we were thinking about resilience and how the percentage of Black people in the energy sector has reduced in the last year. I guess my question is, what do you think will be or is the most effective way to get more professionals or Black professionals interested in joining the energy sector?
Right. Very brilliant question. Thank you, Amanda. I think I spoke to it in some of my contributions. One of the things we can do for some of us that have gotten here, that have grown in the sector, one of the things we can do quickly is to tell our stories, because we need to inspire the next generation. I don't think in the UK we've been able to build a pipeline on how to engage these talents very early enough. Apprenticeship is a very big business in the UK, one of the ways people can easily get into the sector, but also at universities. We don't need to wait for them to graduate first before we do a career tour to tell them how to navigate the sector. We could engage them very early at the first year, second year, third year. And that's one of the things we do within Energyz Black. We do a campus career tour. We're not just engaging, those that are graduating very soon. We're going to like the second year. We just entered a partnership with Loughborough University to go and talk to second year students and get them career ready. So one of the ways is you inspire by telling your stories. Secondly, is that we engage the talent very early. Let's try to get more people to get into the sector. But what are they going to look forward to? Is the salary decent enough? People don't really care about some of these things. They just want to live a decent life, right? So how do we compare the salary that I would get as a project manager that works in a clean energy sector compared to a project manager that works in technology? How do we ensure that the policies are being reframed to ensure that there's a balanced field? So in encouraging young professionals, let's engage them very early. But you're already there, tell your story to inspire the next generation. I think those two effective things will work. Mentorship is a good one as well. Not Black to Black mentorship, but mentorship within the Black, but allyship. I'm a product of, mentorship from allyship. Someone looking at me and said, I think you have a good talent. I think you should be back in the UK to continue your careers. I think those things will really help.
Okay. I would encourage entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is actually finding a problem, a pinpoint, an issue or challenge, and converting it into a solution, whether it's an initiative, a project, or an enterprise that creates value and adds value. You will get duly compensated and recognized for it. I also think strategic partnerships, alliances, joint venture, consortia efforts in teams and groups, which is color unbiased. Because, I'm not going to say set up an all-Black business. I think one has to be very creative as to the structure that delivers the value. And then joining the right networks is so important. So whether it's Women in Energy Network, Energy Institute, Royal Academy of Engineering, you've got to join the right networks where the value you bring to the table is recognized and you're integrating your solutions with those of others. And I think being out there, telling your story, using platforms like LinkedIn and social media to celebrate your successes is also very important.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Was there any other questions? I think I've got time for one or two more. We have two on this table.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. We did a survey amongst our Black engineering students, and we found a very big difference between Black UK-born students in engineering and students coming from African countries in terms of their experience. And I just wonder whether you had any sort of comments about that, because you mentioned, I forget who it was who said it, but they said they didn't, maybe I'm summarizing this incorrectly, but didn't realize they were Black until they came to the UK, right? And that's a very similar experience to some of our African students coming to our courses. And yet the UK-born ones have grown up with that. That's their normality. And yet it seems very much more ingrained in them. So I just wonder whether there's anything you can comment on that, and how, nobody's a monolith, right? We have to look at people's experience as they see it. So I just wonder if you've got any sort of comments around that at all.
Right. I would say that it's unfortunate that the system is color biased in the United Kingdom, whether we like it or not. So I was born in Nigeria, and I didn't come to the United Kingdom until I was 15. So I was never exposed to being different because of the color of my skin. But I do think that certain limitations are imposed on UK-born blacks, depending on even where they're born. So if they go to public school or private school, if they're in a catchment area that is middle class or upper class or aristocratic, that takes its toll on the child. So, I mean, so perhaps having Black role models go into certain environments where limitations imposed on these young minds are detrimental to them becoming engineering is very important. And having clubs where they could see that there are no limits on them because they're Black is a very good idea. I'm sure the Royal Academy of Engineering is working with certain groups in that regard. And this is one of the great things that the Royal Academy is doing, actually addressing minority and diversity issues. But it really, really goes back to the psychology. A Black engineer who started their first years in education in Africa would be totally different from a Black engineer that started their lifestyle in the United Kingdom, because we were raised with no barriers at all. In my case, it was gender and nothing else.
Yeah, it's an interesting stat. I would love to see maybe the results, if you could share with me, because we've seen one of the things I struggled with when I didn't come when I was 15. I came when I was a full-blown adult, right? and then I realized, because I started my career in the north of England, I didn't understand what they were saying. I go for meetings, I'm just like, what are they saying? Because the English is different, right? Yeah. If you've gone to Hull, if you've gone to some of the northern part of England, me mommy, I'm like, what's the memo? Is that a movie or what are you talking about? You know, it was just something that I struggled with. I would go for meetings and I'm able to take notes. I'm not able to even understand anything. And I realized I was not sacked because I was good at what I was doing. I was the only person that could design solar PV solutions in the whole company. And I was the only Black person amongst 200 staff. So I remember going for one meeting where we're hosting like a partner that came to do business with our company. And he requested that I should come into the meeting specifically because they had realized before then that when I go for the meetings, I don't contribute. Why? Because I don't understand what they were saying. You know, I had to go back home playing YouTube videos just to understand how the Northern British people speak, right? That's part of resilience I had to learn. So cultural shift is a very big thing when it comes to the energy sector. And within Energyz Black, we have over 40 to 50% of people just coming to the country. Others are like Black British, you know, the Caribbeans and all of that. And they figured out how to get through this. One of the things that we tell people to do within companies is inclusive leadership, all right, and reverse mentoring. Okay, so once you create a safe space in your organization where people feel that you could learn from their culture. I remember my boss asking me, how did they come to this country? I said, what do you mean? I took the plane. I took the plane. And then he said, so you just took your bag and just came here? I said, yes. You know, I didn't come on a boat, just in case you're wondering. So I had to show him the house. I lived in Lagos. I went on Google Maps. You know, we had this conversation. I went to Google Maps and I showed him the house. I lived in Lagos. That, you know, this is where I used to drive through if I'm going to the office. He was surprised, like, oh, wow, this place is really beautiful. I said, yes, it is beautiful. So he wouldn't have known that if we had not gone through the phase of reverse mentoring. While I was learning from him how to engage within the UK space, now that I'm new here, he was also learning from me my cultural difference. And then he was able to create a safe space for me to have those conversations. So I think one of the things we help is creating a safe space with the organization where these talents can have conversations with you. You could learn from their culture and they could learn from your culture, and just know that I don't want to use the word they're at a disadvantage, but that's the truth. You know, me going to YouTube to learn how to listen. You know, I did IELTS, right? And you know, I passed, obviously. But you know, just that cultural shift is a very big problem. And you know, inclusive leadership is one. Secondly, is creating that safe space for reverse mentorship. You know, it's really good within the organization. And I think that should be able to support, you know, some of your mission you're trying to drive out.
Thank you, Edwin. I think we have time for one last question. And the one last question goes over there. Sorry, everybody else.
Hello, and Edwin, I totally get what you're saying about reverse mentoring. For me, I never ever thought of that space. I'm Emma Thompson. I work for Society of Operations Engineers. We're very much into the value of giving someone a mentor, having that opportunity. But actually, let's change that shift. That's so important. But thank you for that. But my question was really for Ibilola. Lovely to meet you. Apologies, I just said your name wrong. What I wanted to talk to you about was STEM, and I could see that you're really inspiring in your story, and how we need to share that with especially young female who want to join engineering. But my question for you is really, what would you say to yourself when you were 15, 16 to how you are now?
Well, I looking at myself at 15, I just arrived from Nigeria. My late father was a civil and structural engineer, very successful as well. And he'd encouraged me to see myself as successful and the sky being the limits. So I really didn't have any boundaries or limitations. Coming into the United Kingdom and being discriminated against, at least in boarding school, an all-white boarding school in Sapon Walden, was the first culture shock I had to overcome. And one thing I would say for sure is that I needed to be consistent about the fact that my parents had invested in me to become a successful person, and I wasn't going to go back to Nigeria as a failure. So I was going to put my energy and my mind wherever it was required. And this is something that I must say is common to us in Nigerians. Our parents invest in our education. So they will sell a house, they will sell whatever it takes, jewelry, they will sell whatever it takes to give you the best education. As long as you're getting your straight A's and you're doing well, they'll put more money on you. It's just like betting on horses, and that's the bottom line. That's how it works. And I was just not going to fail. And if I was to speak to my younger self, I'll say be very, very focused on God, who is almighty, and remove the idea that there are any limitations that humanity can place on you that you cannot overcome, and put your best forward all the time. Aim for excellence in whatever you do, and try as much as possible to rely on the support systems around you, and key into positivity, and totally grow the thickest skin possibly to any distractions and any negativity around you.
Thank you so much. Amazing. I think that's a very good note to end on. That's all we have time for. Thank you everyone for your brilliant questions. You have a chance to mingle over lunch. Edwin and Ibilola, thank you so much for your time today and your expertise and being open and sharing your experiences with us on this topic.
Thank you so much for having me.